When a bird sings at dawn, is it truly communicating or just producing sound? A single bird can produce 5 to 100 distinct noises, but do they all carry specific meaning? With 11,000 bird species, do they each speak private languages or understand one another? 20 years of research reveal bird communication is stranger and more sophisticated than once expected. Animal Mind Shift explores what happens inside creatures' heads during important decisions. The average songbird produces between 10 and 20 distinct sounds each day. Birds use two sound systems, songs for breeding and calls for daily communication. Songs are long, melodic sequences sung mostly by males during breeding to claim territory and attract mates. Calls are short sounds used year-round by both sexes for specific, narrow functions like alarms or contact. Counting both calls and songs, most bird species have between 10 and 20 distinct sound types. House sparrows have relatively few sounds, while chickens use about 30 different signals, including variants. Black-capped chickadees produce 16 distinct call types, each serving a specific purpose in their daily lives. Some bird species have far more than 20 calls, reaching much higher numbers in their vocal repertoires. What does each bird sound actually mean beyond simple noise or emotional expression? Alarm calls are the most studied because they can mean life or death for birds in danger. Most songbirds have at least two alarm calls, each depending on the type of predator nearby. The high, thin seet call warns of hawks while keeping the caller's location hidden from danger. Unrelated bird species have independently evolved nearly identical seet calls to warn of hawks overhead. Harsh, rapid calls signal perched owls or snakes, alerting others to come and help defend the area. These alarm calls trigger mobbing, where birds aggressively harass predators to drive them away. Black-capped chickadees change the number of D notes in their alarm calls to signal predator size. Bird calls carry specific information about threats, working like nouns to name dangers nearby. Soft chip, sip, and seep calls help flock members stay connected as they move through dense vegetation. Parrots have unique versions of calls that mates and chicks recognize as individual signatures. Parrot mothers use their chicks' signature calls like personal names to call them specifically in the nest. Flight calls help migrating bird flocks keep formation by sound during night flights. Nestlings produce begging calls that instinctively hijack their parents' feeding response. Cuckoo chicks produce louder begging calls than host nestlings to trick foster parents. Distress calls from caught birds attract others to mob predators and attempt rescues. Chickens have distinct calls signaling good food versus ordinary food to others. Roosters use special calls to signal prized food, advertising its quality to attract mates nearby. Birds exchange aggression, greeting, and duet calls to coordinate social interactions within their groups. Some wrens restart their duets if notes fall out of sync, showing remarkable precision in coordination. Most songbirds produce between 10 and 20 distinct functional sounds, plus a variety of melodic songs. Scientists debate whether bird vocalizations form real language, questioning if syntax is involved. Throughout most of the 20th century, the scientific consensus held that birds communicated only through emotional signals, lacking any syntax. In 2016, Toshitaka Suzuki discovered syntax in Japanese titbird calls, changing how we understand their communication. Japanese tits use A, B, C calls to signal danger and D calls to gather the flock together. They string A, B, C, D calls to recruit the flock for coordinated mobbing of predators, a complex group response. Playing Japanese tit calls in reverse order confuses the birds, showing how crucial call sequence is for meaning. The order of bird signals changes their meaning, revealing a basic syntax in bird calls. Bird syntax lacks grammar, but still follows structured communication rules among calls. Suzuki's syntax findings have been replicated in other vocal learning bird species worldwide. Birds communicate with structured calls, not just pure emotional vocalizations or sounds. Bird species vary enormously in the size of their vocal repertoires, from few to many songs. The house sparrow sings only 5 to 10 simple songs, while the nightingale offers about 200 distinct melodies. The brown thrasher holds the record, producing over 1,000 different song variants in North American woods. Female birds prefer males with larger repertoires, a sign of brain development and better chances of survival. Some bird species mimic sounds beyond their own calls, imitating noises from other animals and even machines. The Australian lyrebird can mimic chainsaws, alarms, and calls from many other species in a continuous performance. The northern mockingbird carries 200 songs, all learned from other species around it. European starlings weave ringtones, car horns, and fragments of human speech into their songs. Bird vocal dialects vary across regions, much like the accents humans speak with. California's white-crowned sparrows sing distinct local accents within just 30 kilometers. Bird culture passes vocal dialects from one generation to the next through careful listening. Some birds communicate using drumming on wood, snapping their wings, or whistling with feathers instead of vocal sounds. Woodpeckers drum rapidly on tree trunks with their beaks to mark territory instead of singing. Snipes create a deep humming sound by rushing air through their specially shaped tail feathers during flight. Central American manakins snap their wings mid-air, producing sharp percussive sounds in tropical forest clearings. Birds evolved diverse communication methods including vocal sounds, mimicry, drumming, and feather whistling. Birds in shared habitats often listen closely to calls from other species, understanding their meaning. In forests, mixed species flocks of up to 20 birds move and forage together as one coordinated group. Drongos and titmice serve as trusted sentinels, alerting mixed flocks to approaching danger with sharp calls. Sparrows take flight immediately when they hear titmouse alarm calls, despite no close relation between them. Birds learn over their lifetime which species' alarm calls are reliable and which ones to trust in their environment. Birds listen closely to alarm calls from monkeys and ground squirrels nearby, responding swiftly. Young birds learn to recognize alarms from other species over time, not by instinct alone. The fork-tailed drongo deceives other animals with false alarms, causing them to flee and lose food. Drongos use false alarms to scare prey, swooping in quickly to snatch insects from startled victims. Drongos must limit their deception, or prey will stop trusting their alarm calls altogether. Fork-tailed drongos mimic alarm calls from other species to regain trust after false alarms. Drongos understand the minds of multiple species and carefully manage their own credibility. This deception ranks among the most complex examples of tactical lying outside primates. Traffic noise near roads disrupts bird communication, forcing them to change their songs. City birds sing at higher pitches to overcome traffic noise but lose signal quality. Traffic noise forces city birds to sing at higher pitches, losing the lower textures females use to judge males. Human noise pollution slowly breaks down the quality of bird communication signals in forests near traffic. The cage bird trade in Southeast Asia empties forests of songbirds, silencing once vibrant natural soundscapes. The white-rumped shama has gone silent across much of its former range, its local dialects lost to quiet forests. Without adult songs, juvenile birds fail to learn regional dialects, causing a loss of cultural transmission in silent forests. Removing singing birds tears holes in conversations that have echoed for thousands of years, breaking an ancient acoustic culture. On average, birds have 10 to 20 distinct sounds, but some species boast thousands of calls and songs combined. Bird sounds serve clear purposes. Alarm calls warn of danger, contact calls maintain connection, food calls signal meals, and courtship or distress calls express emotion. Some bird calls carry detailed information about predators, specifying their type, size, and how close they are to the caller. Japanese tits combine signals in precise A, B, C, D sequences where the order changes meaning, revealing syntax in their calls. Birds in mixed species flocks recognize alarm calls from others, showing learned trust across species. Forests hum with minds talking, warning, coordinating, and sometimes deceiving through layered sounds. Every morning, birds fill the air above us with layered calls and songs, weaving daily communication. We rarely pause long enough to truly hear the complex conversations unfolding overhead in the trees. Most songbirds use between 10 and 20 distinct calls and songs each day to communicate. Calls are short and functional, while songs are long and melodic, often marking territory. Male birds sing to declare territory and attract mates during the breeding season. Calls are used year-round by both sexes to manage daily life and communication. House sparrows have fewer calls and songs than most songbird species. Chickens use about 30 signals, including many close variants for different situations. Birds use distinct alarm calls to warn of aerial predators like hawks, and different ones for ground threats. The seet call warns of hawks while keeping the caller's location hidden from the sharp-eyed predator. Harsh alarm calls rally other birds to mob perched owls or snakes, driving these predators away together. Mobbing is group harassment where birds collectively chase predators, protecting their territory and young. Black-capped chickadees vary the number of D notes in alarms to signal a predator's size and agility. Contact calls like chip, tsip, and seep sounds help flock members stay connected as they move through dense forest. Parrots recognize individual call versions within their groups, using them like personal names to identify mates and chicks. Flight calls, faint seep sounds, guide migrating flocks at night, helping thousands keep formation by sound alone. Nestlings' begging calls hijack their parents' brains, triggering an involuntary feeding reflex to ensure they get fed. Cuckoo chicks produce louder begging calls than host nestlings, hijacking host parents to feed them instead. Distress calls from captured birds can rally others nearby to mob predators and try to rescue them. Chickens use distinct calls to signal when they find high-quality food versus ordinary feed. Roosters loudly advertise the quality of food they discover to attract nearby hens as potential mates. Birds exchange aggression, greeting, and duet calls to coordinate their social interactions in the forest. Wrens perform precise duets, restarting their song whenever a note falls out of sync or timing fails. Suzuki's 2016 study revealed that Japanese tit calls have syntax, where the order of calls changes their meaning. Playback experiments showed that changing the order of bird calls alters their meaning, proving basic syntax rules. Bird syntax is simpler than human grammar, but still represents real, structured communication in nature. Bird repertoires vary widely, from house sparrows with 5 to 10 songs to brown thrashers with over 1,000. Lyrebirds mimic chainsaws and alarms, while mockingbirds copy over 200 songs, including fragments of human speech. White-crowned sparrows sing distinct local accents in neighboring California valleys. These dialects influence female mate choice and pass culturally across generations. Some birds communicate without vocal calls. Woodpeckers drum on tree trunks, snipes produce deep hums with feathers, and manakins snap their wings sharply. Mixed species flocks of up to 20 bird species move together through forests. They coordinate alarm calls to stay alert and act as one unit. Birds learn to trust alarm calls from other species, including monkeys and ground squirrels. This cross-species eavesdropping helps them survive. The fork-tailed drongo uses false alarms and mimicry to scare other animals. It then sunning deception. Drongos must balance deception carefully to keep their prey trusting alarm calls. Too much false alarm risks losing credibility. Traffic noise forces city birds like great tits in Berlin to sing at higher pitches to be heard over the din. Higher-pitched singing degrades the quality signals females use to judge males, losing important lower textures. The cage bird trade empties forests, silencing species like the white-rumped shama once heard in these woods. Lost dialects erase thousands of years of bird culture and acoustic traditions once passed down through generations. Removing birds from forests tears holes in the ongoing natural acoustic conversations once rich with life. Bird sounds carry specific, functional meanings like alarm calls warning of danger, contact calls keeping groups together, and food calls signaling discovery. Some bird vocalizations have syntax foundations, where the order of calls changes meaning, as shown by Japanese tit ABC-D calls. Birds in mixed-species flocks understand alarm calls beyond their own kind, responding through learned recognition rather than instinct alone. Forests are alive with complex bird conversations, filled with warnings and coordination among multiple species beneath the sunlit canopy. Every morning, the forest fills with layered bird voices, a constant hum of ongoing communication. Humans rarely pause long enough to truly listen to the rich complexity of bird sounds. Songbirds use a daily mix of calls and songs, each serving distinct functions in their lives. Male birds sing during breeding season to mark territory and attract mates with melodic songs. Bird calls include alarms, contact signals, food alerts, aggression, and social greetings among them. Birds use distinct alarm calls to warn of aerial predators like hawks, and different calls for threats on the ground. Certain calls summon other birds to mob predators, harassing them until they leave the area for safety. Some birds produce referential calls that encode details about a predator's size and how close it is nearby. Contact calls help flock members stay in touch as they move quietly through dense vegetation. Flight calls guide nocturnal, migrating flocks, helping them maintain formation by sound in the dark sky. Begging calls from nestlings hijack parental feeding instincts, urging adults to bring food. Cuckoo chicks produce louder begging calls, outshining host nestlings to secure more food. Distress calls from captured birds can trigger others to mob predators and attempt rescue. Food calls signal quality, with roosters advertising prized finds to attract mates nearby. Aggression, greeting, and duet calls help birds regulate social bonds within their groups. Wrens perform precise duets, restarting instantly if their timing or notes fall out of sync. In 2016, Suzuki proved syntax exists in Japanese tit calls, showing ABC-D sequences carry specific meaning. Changing the order of bird calls alters their meaning, revealing structured communication rules among birds. Bird repertoires vary widely, from just a few songs to over 1,000 variants, like the brown thrasher's record. Some birds, like the lyrebird and mockingbird, mimic sounds from many species and even humans, weaving complex performances. White-crowned sparrows sing distinct local accents in neighboring valleys. Females prefer these local dialects, passing culture across generations. Woodpeckers drum on tree trunks, snipes produce a winnowing hum, and manakins snap their wings mid-air to communicate without vocal calls. In Amazonian mixed flocks, 20 species move as one. Drongos and titmice act as sentinels, while sparrows trust titmouse alarm calls. The fork-tailed drongo deceives multiple species by mimicking false alarm calls, others to flee, letting it steal food. Traffic noise near roads forces great tits to sing at higher frequencies. This degrades signal quality and impairs female evaluation of mates. The cage bird trade in Southeast Asia silences species like the white-rumped shama. Lost regional dialects vanish, erasing an ancient acoustic culture once rich and vibrant. Above us, birds converse in complex layers every morning, yet humans rarely pause to truly listen to these rich, cross-species soundscapes unfolding overhead.